When we think of ancient Rome, our minds usually jump to legions, gladiators, maybe some marble temples. But what about high finance, credit systems, shadow banking? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on the surprisingly modern world of money in the Roman Empire.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. Picture this. You're in a Roman market. We're talking 2,000 years ago. You spot the perfect toga, but it's a bit pricey and you're short on coin. You'd think that's the end of it, right? The perfect excuse to walk away.
Well, not so fast. The Roman poet Ovid, writing way back in the 1st century BC, he lays out the scene perfectly. He says if you complain you have no coin, it's no matter. 'Tis but writing of a line, a little bill, not to be paid at sight. I mean, that sounds an awful lot like writing a check, doesn't it? Or using line of credit. So how on earth did a system this sophisticated actually work without any modern banks?
Well, to understand their solution, we first have to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of their problem. Moving money in the ancient world was a logistical nightmare, and really it all came down to one thing: weight.
So get a load of this number, 3.5 million sesterces. That's the price the famous statesman Cicero paid for his fancy house on Rome's Palatine Hill. It's a huge sum for sure, but what does that actually represent in physical metal?
3.5 tons of coins. I mean, just think about that for a second. This fact alone shows you how absurd a purely coin-based economy was for the wealthy. Can you even imagine trying to haul that through the crowded streets of Rome just to buy a house? It's completely insane.
So, to solve this literally weighty problem, the Romans developed a really elegant paper-based solution, the transferable IOU. And the whole system hinged on this one crucial concept: nominae. A nomen was, at its simplest, an entry in an account book, a formal record of a debt. But it was so much more than that. This debt was transferable, and it became what one historian calls the lifeblood of the Roman economy. Here's how it would play out. Let's say someone reputable owed you a bunch of money. That debt is your nomen. Now, if you wanted to go buy something expensive, you didn't need to haul around a bunch of coins. You could just transfer that debt to the seller. This whole procedure was called delegatio, and it was totally standard practice, as long as the original debtor was considered a bonum nomen, a good name, or what we'd call a AAA creditor today. So who was managing all of this on a massive scale? I mean, who handled the finances for the entire Roman state? Well, it wasn't a government agency. It was a powerful and hugely influential group of private corporations known as the publiconi. These were the publicani. Now, you'll often hear them called tax farmers. And look, tax collection was their most famous gig, but their role went far, far beyond just that. They were, for all intents and purposes, a privatized financial arm of the Roman state. The publicani would bid on contracts to handle pretty much everything, funding legions on the frontier, building roads and aqueducts, even operating the state's very lucrative mines. They were the engine of public finance, and yeah, they did it all for a profit. But where the publicani's true genius really shined was in solving the problem of long-distance finance. How do you pay for, say, a mining operation in North Africa from your office back in Rome without risking your entire fortune on seas crawling with pirates? This is where they became a kind of proto-shadow bank. They invented something called permutatio, which historians call Rome's great contribution to ancient banking. It was basically a system for transferring funds from one place to another using only paper transactions, all by leveraging their massive network of offices across the empire. It was a brilliant system. You'd go to the publicani office in Rome, and you'd give them your money, or maybe you transfer them a nomen. They would then shoot an order to their provincial branch, let's say in North Africa, and that branch would then pay your associate using the local tax revenue they had already collected. No money ever had to get on a boat and sail across the sea. They just moved numbers around in their ledgers. And this comparison really gets to the heart of how this all worked. It was a brokerage-based system, a lot like a modern shadow banking system. Instead of relying on formal bank deposits, it ran on these transferable debts, the nomina, which functioned a little bit like securitized debt does today. The entire system was built on a foundation of trust and reputation, which was really just the ancient equivalent of our modern credit ratings. But, as you can probably imagine, a system that's built on outsourcing essential state functions to private profit-seeking companies, well, it has an inherent dark side. The system was profitable,
You could even say it was too profitable, because the core incentive for the Publicani wasn't public service, it was maximizing their return on investment. And that created the perfect environment for widespread corruption and abuse. And Cicero gives us this absolutely stunning example from when he was prosecuting Verres, the corrupt governor of Sicily. He describes how Verres knowingly awarded a tax contract to a guy named Apronius for a bid that was so high it was literally impossible for him to break even legally. Apronius was forced to illegally extort the local population, collecting a third of their harvest instead of the legal tenth just to make his money back. And this kind of abuse was rampant. The Publicani would charge dozens of small, illegal fees that could easily double a person's tax bill. They used their own staff for violent enforcement, they'd overvalue goods at customs to inflate the duties, and they would seize any goods they claimed were undeclared. For the average person in the provinces, an encounter with the tax collector could be absolutely terrifying. Now, the state wasn't completely blind to all this. There were attempts at reform. The Emperor Nero, for example, he decreed that all tax regulations had to be posted publicly. The idea was pretty simple. If taxpayers knew their rights and knew the actual laws, they could better defend themselves against this illegal stuff.
So what's the big takeaway here? Rome outsourced its entire financial backbone to private enterprise. And on one hand, this created a system of incredible sophistication and efficiency that could finance a global empire.
But on the other hand, it also unleashed this constant struggle between private profit and the public good. The Publicani were essential, no doubt about it, but their pursuit of wealth often came at a terrible cost to the people in the provinces. It was a delicate and often brutal balance. And this Roman experience brings up a tension that feels incredibly modern. Is privatizing essential state functions a powerful engine for innovation, or is it really just an open invitation for corruption? When you look at the Roman model, what you see is a powerful 2,000-year-old reflection of a question we are still trying to answer today.